with liberty and justice for all.
Once again, let us remain standing for a moment of silence for all servicemen and women serving our country around the world. Thank you. Welcome to the workshop meeting, the Village Board of Suffern, Monday, April 30th. Next upcoming meetings, we will have the regular meeting, Village Board of Trustees, Monday, May 6th at 7 p.m. And the workshop following will be Tuesday, May 28th at 7 p.m. Okay, next we're going to have the authorization of a property tax cap levy in excess of the limit established in General Municipal Law, Section 3C. If Mr. DeMarco can give us an overview on the municipal law, please.
Sure. So the municipal law provides that a local government, its governing body, can override the tax cap for the coming fiscal year by adoption of a local law approved by a vote of 60% of the governing body, and this local law does just that. If the board does not approve this local law, then the board would need to go back to the tentative budget and revise it to have it underneath the 2% tax cap.
Great. Mr. Genito, if you can give us an opening statement and an introduction on the budget.
Certainly, Mayor. Well, as you know, we started out with the budget going out, tentative budget going to the board on March 21st. And then we had several meetings and public hearings as well. Public hearing was held on April 11th and closed on the 17th, April 17th. That was a public hearing on the tentative budgets, the proposed water rates and the proposed sewer rates. We also have ongoing a public hearing on the tax levy cap, which should be closed today prior to taking a vote. And the budget where it stands today, one thing that we'll note and put it in a statement as well as it's in the resolution because we're required to do so, the tentative budget revenues were increased in the tentative budget. Parking permits from $175,000 to $185,428. That's to reflect the sale of new parking permits to the Sheldon Orange Avenue apartments. The other item was snow and ice aid was increased from 0 to $19,148 to reflect the estimated contractual obligation of New York State Department of Transportation for the removal of snow and ice on New York State roads that are treated by the village. And then on April 30th, which is today, we have before us a budget, tentative budget, that has been amended by the various proposed amendments both on the 17th and the 23rd. It now brings the tax rate down to $86.98 per thousand assessed valuation. That is 7% above last year's or the current year's tax rate. The solid waste district for the curbside is $540, which is $6 more than last year. The container solid waste district is $182 per unit. That's $1 less than last year. Our water fund has appropriations that provide for a slight increase, about 1.1% in the water rates, and the sewer rates and that would be approximately $12 a year. The sewer rates would be approximately $38 a year more than they were last year for the average home. And our debt service fund remains unchanged because debt service, as you know, that's the payment of principal and interest on serial bonds that the city, that the village has, and we are required to make those payments. One other thing that happened between the time that we last met is our assessment clerk advised us that the assessment went up from $132,575,136 to $132,840,366, and so that had a slight benefit of giving us about 0.2% of that tax rate increase, to bring it down to 0.2%. So that's where we are with the budget at this point, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the board, Mr. Alpert?
first thing I want to do is commend the entire board on all the hard work, because we started at a pretty unacceptable 14%, 13.9%, and we've whittled that down to 6.98 is what I calculated. Mike just said 7, but I think it's actually even lower. I think it's 6.98 is how I calculated it. I was very impressed when I saw that number. I figured out in the case of my home, it's less than a $300 increase for the year, and that's quite a lot of work that was done. I am very impressed with everybody's work. I'd like to see it lower. I don't see, in this instance, how we're going to get there. But I think there are ways that we could have gotten there. But I think, obviously, at this point, we're at the end stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Girard?
The only comment I want to say is I appreciate the residents being involved in this process. I think it was a difference maker. It pushed for us to meet more often. It pushed for us to challenge the process. And I think a good chunk of the results and your comments and your concerns about how it's affecting your taxes and your decisions about living here, it was a good message that everybody needed to hear, and I think it was very instrumental in us making the progress we made. I wish we made better progress, but I encourage you to stay involved, and I will pledge that regardless of where we land on the budget, that going forward we will continue to scrutinize all the expenses, challenge all the decisions. There's quite a bit of capital assumed in this budget that is not approved, but it's been proposed as part of this budget process, about $4.5 million. And we have to, as those proposals come forth to be approved, to be settled upon, and whether or not we make decisions on them, I think we're gonna push ourselves with a lot more scrutiny and challenge each other to make sure that those are good decisions and money well spent and things that we need to do, because that is funded by debt, which ultimately is an expense borne by the residents. So that's all I like to say. I appreciate all your participation and involvement.
Thank you. Ms. Hertzman?
I did write something so that I didn't speak off the cuff. So I would like to just read it. It is imperative to have a fiscally sound and responsible budget that allows enough funds to serve the community. It's the responsibility of this board as a whole to make that decision. It's also imperative that decision is made after the budgeting process is complete. The initial budget, which is always called the tentative budget, always includes all the wish lists of every department head. It's always much higher. It's our job to make it lower. But when budget limits are declared before a budget review has occurred, and when budgets are attempted to be voted down without regard to the impact on services, it's not a fiscally responsible budget. And it's not working in the best interest of us all. So now that we're at the conclusion of the budget review, we have to make a decision whether to override this cap or vote down the proposed budget. And we've seen the effects. When this practice has been instituted in the East Ramapo School District, it took it down. When budgets aren't funded, there's no recourse but to reduce services. And it's easy to say that we can eliminate amenities. Those are the things that make us a desirable and community-minded village. But it's the unintended consequence of those actions mean that our village is no longer a desirable area to live. If we eliminate local events, celebrations, well, then we eliminate our recreation department, And are we really acting in the best interests of our community to do so? If we curtail the services of the DPW and we don't continue to pave our roads, improve our infrastructure, are we acting in the best interests of our village residents? If we curtail the operations of our police department, are we acting in the best interests of our community? So we as a board, we have tenured members here that have been through this budget process quite a few times before, and we've held it down to a very low percentage. We have a track record of sound fiscal budgets and minimal increases. We have improved our financial stability, and we continue to make improvements to both our bottom line and the services we provide. So regardless of that fallout that may come from making a decision that exceeds the cap, I have to base my decision on what's best for all of us, our community, and how we make our place a continued place to be, where someone wants to move here. To that end, a 2% budget doesn't put us there.
Thank you.
That's me.
Mr. Hagen.
Yes, I'd like to say that the village board works very hard every year to benefit the village in doing budgets. We'll continue to do so. And I want to thank everybody for helping us make these decisions. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I also have a prepared statement. So my statement reads as follows. A fiscally responsible budget is developed by accurately determining revenues and accurately determining expenses based on a combination of historical and current operating conditions. Considering both these critical factors, a fiscally responsible budget should accurately reflect what is minimally required to maintain operations without jeopardizing the future. The budget that was prepared by our treasurer, Mr. Michael Genito, in cooperation with our department heads and board members, accomplishes that goal, and I thank you, Michael, and department heads. A budget that reflects overestimates revenues and underfunds expenses would be detrimental to maintaining our vital infrastructure, would fail to provide for legally required expenses, and would create the need for a high interest rate deficit borrowing to cover required monthly expenditures. The 2013-2014 tentative budget increases reflected these budgeting practices, just as I described. As a result of those budgeting practices, the village became the most fiscally stressed village in the state of New York. That's according to the New York State Comptroller. We do not want to get into that practice. To pay for legally mandated expenses and cover payroll costs, the village had to incur debt through high interest rate borrowing to cover required monthly expenditures. And unfortunately, the village is still paying that debt that was incurred in 13 and 14. Improper funding and oversight of wastewater treatment plant resulted in 6 of 8 unit operations either not running or not running within desired design ranges. This resulted in a 2012 consent order by the DEC mandating operational improvements to meet legally required standards. In June of 15, the previous administrations proposed a 22.7% tax rate increase because of this situation. Since I've been mayor, the adopted budgets reflected a 3.92 in 2016, a 4.3% in 2017, and a 4.15 in 2018. During this time, I have addressed the $1.5 million deficit incurred during previous administrations. I've also had to address and improve the operational conditions of our wastewater treatment plant. The village began to return to fiscal stability in 2016. Continuous monitoring of expenditures and revenues by our treasurer and board allowed us to address variances from spending plans to achieve budgetary goals. My team has developed a multi-year capital improvement plan, so necessary capital assets are financed in a manner that spreads the cost out over time. As Mr. Girard referred to, analyzing and scrutinizing capital spending. As a full-service village, the village provides through its residents with quality public safety personnel such as our police department and fire department, public works department, water and wastewater treatment resources. Service levels would drastically change or be eliminated to achieve a budget under the current New York State mandated tax cap. The services that the village of Suffern provides are essential to our continued autonomy, but associated costs, including the cost of healthcare, insurance, repairs, and maintenance, must be paid for through the village taxes if they are to be maintained. Suffern is a wonderful place to live, and it shows through real estate trends and the transit-oriented development projects that are proposed, planned, and underway. These plans are revenue-generating projects that we need to encourage and welcome into the village, such as the Orange Avenue project, the Sheldon. Our beautiful community is maintained through the hard work and dedication of our DPW staff. A few of them are sitting over there at the table, Joe and Charles. Our streets are maintained, our garbage is picked up, recycling, leaves, bulk items picked up, and the streets are plowed and salted with pride. These guys doing an excellent job. The DPW and the entire administrative staff work together tirelessly to provide the best service for our residents at the lowest cost possible. Suffern has one of the lowest crime rates in the state, thanks to the dedication of our police department. Our crime rate is so low that it is award-winning. People come to our community because of our low crime rates as a determining factor. They want to live here for that reason. Response times are within minutes of an emergency, which means lives are saved and property is protected. Through community policy strategies, policing strategies, youth programs such as their close involvement in schools and volunteering throughout the community, including the toy drive that serves hundreds of children. Suffern police are invested in the future of our village. The Village of Suffern Fire Department is 100% volunteer. Firefighters are available around the clock 24/7, risking their lives to protect the lives and property of the Village of Suffern residents. The cost to replicate this level of service through paid firefighters is unimaginable. These are only a few examples of why Suffern is a wonderful place to live. The budget proposed this evening accurately reflects the revenues and expenditures of the village. The budget maintains our vital, critical services at the lowest cost possible, and the board will continue to actively work with department heads, as they always do, to find additional cost savings through productivity improvement strategies, and we will continue to work towards that goal. The Village of Suffern is a wonderful place to live, and I am proud to live here, work, and be part of this amazing village, now and in the future. The reason why I read so much of that, I don't know if you were honing in on it, but the services that we provide to each and every one of the residents here is based on your tax dollars. This is what we need to provide those services. We offer, and I know that you all received or looked at our shopping bag of services. That is what your tax dollars go towards. And that's why this budget is imperative to pass, to provide those services to our village residents. Thank you. Yeah. So at this time, I have the resolution.
Mayor, just before there's the resolution authorizing the tax levy in excess of the tax cap and the adoption of that local law, if I could just ask that you and the village clerk confirm that the public hearing had been closed at one of the last public meetings?
Correct. So we're proposed local law authorizing a property tax levy in the excess of the limit established by General Municipal Law, Section 3C, for the fiscal year ending May 31, 2020, was introduced at the meeting of the village board held on April 1st, 2019, at which time the public hearing, nope, I read the wrong one.
That's right. Public
Hearing was set for April 11th, 2019, and whereas the public hearing was held on April 11th, 2019, and April 17th, 2019, at which time all persons interested in speaking on this matter were given an opportunity to be heard, after which the public hearing was closed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This time I have the resolution number 94 of 2019, adopting local law number 2 of 2019, authorizing a property tax levy in excess of the limit established in the general municipal law 3C. Resolved that after careful consideration of the proposed local law, comments received at the public hearing on said proposed local law, and the status of the tentative budget, the village board hereby adopts local law number 2 of 2019, authorizing a property tax levy in excess of the limit established in general municipal law section 3C as follows. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to bring up a few things that have been in my mind. It's been stated by yourself and by others that the village was on the brink of bankruptcy approximately 5 years ago, give or take, right? In the interim, through good management, the village has gotten away from that problem. And in fact, not only has the village got, reduced, as far as the expenditures and whatnot that were causing the problems, and increased the revenue and all that other stuff, to the point though, that there have been surpluses in virtually every budget since then. To the point that the village currently is sitting on a fund balance that I believe Mr. Genito said was 12% of the budget, if I'm not mistaken. So by my math, that's about $1.7 million, just under. I don't know the exact amount. There's also been some matters which have been requested, information on when the taxes are collected, the fund balance itself, number one, plus the taxes that get collected, whether, since they're in interest-bearing accounts, whether that interest should show up on the budget, and it was actually decided no. That makes me very uncomfortable because there is revenue and there's money in the bank, so to speak. And I think that plus $200,000 towards a contingency on top of the roughly $1.7 million that the village is sitting on is almost $2 million of taxpayer money that, I'm not saying should be spent down. I think it's great that we've been able to come out of the hole that we were in. However, I don't know that it's fair to ask residents to exceed the budget cap that the state of New York has placed on New York State communities, on villages, towns, etc. This 2% cap is not something that I think should be broken through. And that's what I wanted to say before I continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On the second?
You got a second.
You had a second, Moira, second.
I made the motion.
On the discussion, I'm sorry. Good, okay.
Ed, should we ask Mike to maybe just give an explanation as to the percentage of the fund balance that's considered appropriate
Sure.
by the state?
Mr. Genito, if you could comment on the fund balance and the contingency.
And the
contingency fund.
contingency?
Yes, we did, just to be clear that we did speak about this numerous times, but once again, for the public.
Yes, and a question had been brought up at a previous workshop, public meeting that we had on the budget, wherein somebody in the audience had mentioned that 10% was the maximum allowed by law according to New York State. And I could not find any documentation to that effect and contacted the State Comptroller's office, whereupon they pointed out to me a bulletin that they had put out just a few years ago, indicating that the fund balance should be a reasonable fund balance, that there is no minimum or maximum to the fund balance. However, they did state that in good fiscal practice, you should have approximately 2 months' worth of expenditures in your fund balance as an appropriate minimum level of fund balance. That comes out to 16.67%, I believe. Now, the other part to that is that we're not only dealing with what the state comptroller might recommend is a minimum fund balance, but I also mentioned that Moody's, which is our credit rating agency, and they do a credit rating very similar to others. If you want to get into the AA rating, which is the very good rating to get your best rates on bonds and the best market for your bonds, they look for a AA to be at a minimum 15% and up to 30%. Now, speaking with Moody's about our particular situation, because other factors go into effect, they advised that they wanted to see us somewhere between 20 and 30%. So whatever that range is, and I understand the concern that people might have to say, well, we're sitting on $1.7 million, it sounds like an awful lot of money, and why can't we use $300,000 or $400,000 of that to bring down into the tax levy cap? The problem with it is you're on that same path that this village followed for several years that got us into a deficit mode, because they were using fund balance, and in some cases using revenues that didn't exist to bring us down. I have been a part of that team to put this village back on a fiscal track of proper fiscal responsibility. And I've got to say that I've had many, many discussions with auditing firms, the state comptroller's office. As a matter of fact, you should know that we still have the deficit bonds outstanding. We're paying off that deficit that was created for so many years. And we're paying that off. We're now into like our third year of payment on those bonds. We've got 10 years altogether. And I can tell you that whether you're talking to a bond counsel, a financial advisor for the village, the state comptroller's office, which by the way, they also, as part of that rule, we have to file quarterly reports with the state comptroller's office, which we do. They also come in once a year to look at the tentative budget and to evaluate it. And every year, and that document is up on the web now, it says that it is a responsible and reasonable budget, and that's what they have said in the prior years. So to that end, I mean, it's a matter of anybody's opinion how much fund balance you should use. I can only tell you I have over 35 years of experience serving for standalone AAA communities like the city of Rye, and AA1 communities like the city of White Plains, and that AA1 is just below a AAA. And I can tell you from experience that we're doing the right thing, and yes, there is some pain in seeing a budget increase. One of the things that I think we have to look at, I also own a home here in Suffern. Look at your tax bill and figure out what 7% of your tax bill is. And you might be shocked to find out, as was mentioned earlier, you're paying less than $300 for a full-service village with a full-service 24/7 police department, 24/7 fire department. If you think about it, what other services do we get here from anybody else as a resident? To the town, the ambulance district. That's about the only thing you get from the town, other than being able to use their parks. And the county has social services. So other than that, we have our own public works department, and I guarantee you, anybody knows, coming in and out of Suffern during the winter, when the roads have to be plowed, you can drive on the Suffern roads anytime, except when the storm is underway in the middle of it, like a big storm. But there's a lot of places that wait till the very end of the storm to clear that snow or clear the ice, and they don't necessarily do such a great job of doing it. Likewise with the garbage pickup, well, I could go on and on about the services. I was born and raised, my grandmother was born and raised, or was raised here in Suffern. So, you know, the bottom line is, it's a great community to live in. This is what we pay, and if you think about your village tax bill, and whether you've got to pay $300 more a year for that, and what that works out to in the course of a day, and what else you spend your money on, it's a pretty good deal. But to the issue of the fund balance, I know it's very tempting to tie into it, or to say maybe we don't need as much contingency. You know, we have 2 contracts that are going to be settled, probably this year. And, you know, contingency is also for the unknown and the unexpected. So if you get something really bad that hits, you're going to be prepared for it rather than going out and having to borrow money or running into a very low fund balance.
Thank you, Mr. Genito. Okay, on the vote to override the authorizing a property tax cap levy in excess of the limits established by GML Section 3C, Mr. Alpert,
No.
Mr. Girard,
I'm starting with the residents on this, so we can do better. I'm voting no.
Mr. Hagen,
Yes.
Ms. Hertzman,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes. Is that beeping? Is that a phone?
It's one, but it's on sorry.
Mr. Genito, resolution adopting the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget. The resolution. Okay, I have it. As a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for the general fund, including the curbside solid waste district and the container solid waste district, the water fund, the sewer fund, and the debt service for fiscal year ending May 31, 2020. Could you give us an overview of the resolution, please?
Yes, Mayor, as I noted earlier, that the tax rate will be set at $86.98. That's total appropriations of $15.5 million, reduced by estimated revenues other than property taxes of approximately $4 million. That brings us down to $11.6 million in real property tax levy, and with the assessed valuation being $132.8 million, that brings us to a tax rate of 86.98 per 1,000 assessed valuation. Curbside solid waste district will provide appropriations of $1 million, and there are 1,878 units being serviced. That is either single-family homes or a two-family home would be a 2-unit. So the rate will be $540 per year. And the container solid waste district, that serves the co-ops and apartments and so forth. That's a total budget of $313,586, serving 1,723 units at a unit rate of $182. The water fund appropriations are $2.2 million, less estimated revenues of $28,200, and that brings us to an amount to be raised by metered water sales of $2.1 million. As you know, we have tiered rates, so the base rate for a minimum charge of less than 10 units of water is $35, and above that, it goes to $373 for between 10 and 71 units. That's where most people would sit, and then over 70 units would be $4.86 per unit. The sewer fund appropriations are $2.5 million, offset by $24,000 in estimated revenues, and it comes out to approximately $2.5 million to be raised in sewer rents. The minimum charge remains the same at $25, with a per unit of water consumed, $11.57. And the debt service fund, the total appropriations are $1,193,466. That money is paid out of the general fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund over to the debt service fund, which in turn pays the bondholders. And that is our budgets for the fiscal year ending May 31, 2020.
Great, thank you very much. Now, the resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for the general fund, including curbside solid waste district, and the container solid waste district, the water fund, the sewer fund, and the debt service for fiscal year ending May 31, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Alpert,
No.
Mr. Girard,
No.
Mr. Hagen,
Yes.
Ms. Hertzman,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes. Next, I have a resolution. Adoption of the 2019-2020 Comprehensive Financial Policy Document. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. Next, I have a resolution number 97 of 2019, amending the 2018-2019 general fund budget to transfer funds from police contractual to police personal services. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Hertzman. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in?
Actually, I guess the chief isn't here, I guess he can't answer this. This is our second adjustment on overtime, I just want to understand what's driving this. But I guess that'll be a follow-up with the chief.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Okay, next on the list is the fire department. Have one of the chiefs? Chief Lepori.
Evening.
Good evening.
Just a couple of things. The Hook and Ladder would like to have a Touch a Truck show fundraiser. I want to hold it at the ball fields on June 1st.
Okay.
Next thing is we have a new member for the, over 18 member for the hose company, Francisco T. Yellow.
Okay.
And lastly is the bay floors in the firehouses. If we're gonna fix them, we're gonna have to start soon because it's, we can only do them during good weather.
Mhm.
You know, because the trucks are gonna have to be outside for whatever week or so in the parking lot. So we can't do it when it's cold out because the water would freeze and, you know, so it's up to you guys. I don't know whether this is.
I know we were looking at that, putting that under a capital project, but let's have further discussion on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things we were looking on that was additional bids.
Yeah, I mean, it has to go out. It would have to go out. for bid.
I think you had some, we had at least one quote.
Well, the one, I
Yeah,
know,
The one
the
floor.
one we sent you, the one we sent you for the hose company, I know that has to go out.
Right.
So the other ones, I believe they would have to go out as well, or.
I think we have to look at it overall, globally for all of them and see what the total cost is and see how we can work
See if
that
we
into a
can- see if
capital
we can work it
project.
out, or whatever we're gonna do, but,
Right.
you know, like I said, if we're gonna do it, it has to be, we're gonna have to do it in the next couple of months, by the time you schedule it and do it.
Mhm, mhm.
You know, like, in September, we're having a county parade here, so the floors would either have to be done by then, or we're done in the end of September, and then you start looking at bad weather again, so. It's just one of those things that's a little time sensitive if we're
Right.
gonna do it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You answer a question for me on that. So, on the floor that we looked at, when we had the meeting
Yep.
there, how long has that condition been there?
We've been trying to get it fixed for the last 8 years. Every year it gets a little worse.
Understood. Because the reason I'm asking is because I have it on, we'll call it good word, best word to put it, that actually this condition goes back to about 2002.
I know at least the last 8 years. I'm not sure how much
So
further.
I was told by this person, and I was asked, that person didn't want to elaborate who they were, but that they are very familiar with the situation. Maybe it was Mike Curley.
Listen, if it's a firehouse, I'm for it.
I'm all for repairs, but I was told by this person that actually an engineer looked at the problem in 2002 or 2003. An engineer from Suffern, Dennis Rocks, had looked at it at that time. Now, I haven't gotten the information from it because I wanted to wait till I could speak to you in person. But I was told by this person that Dennis Rocks at the time evaluated it and said this is normal settling. And then there was some question, is that real, is that fake? So they actually brought another person in, an expert, and said, oh yeah, no, this is normal settling and it's not a problem, it will not get worse.
I have no knowledge of that before my time,
Okay,
you know.
but I think we should at least, if we were to proceed, I think we should get an expert to confirm that we really need to do it or not, because apparently in 2002, it was decided
You know,
that
yeah,
this is a
that's
normal
fine, that's up to
thing.
you, you know.
And I don't
you
know
guys
enough,
wanna do
I'm
that.
not a builder, I know nothing about concrete, I'll be the first to say. I cannot make a judgment on that, I'm only going by what I was told by somebody who was directly familiar with the situation, and who told me that they were told by an expert almost 16 years ago, 17
Wow.
years ago, that this is normal, and that it's not a problem.
That was before my time, I don't know anything about it. And, you know, if you wanna have somebody else look at it, you can have them look at it. All I know is that since I've been there, the cracks get a little worse every year, so.
That
And I
one
don't-
section, if you remember by the window,
Yeah.
that section is bad.
Okay, and it might be worse than it was. I'm only going by what I was told, that somebody who's familiar with it now and was familiar with it then said it hasn't in fact changed. But I don't know, because I'm not aware. I'm just saying we should, before we spend big money on it, it might be worth our while to at least have the village engineer, or if not, someone more
It's a great idea.
qualified, look at it.
Yes,
That's all.
absolutely.
That's all I'm asking.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay.
All right.
One question, maybe by Monday's meeting, can you have a number of new enrollees for the last 2 years, 18 and over 18 and under 18?
Okay.
That should be easy.
Yep, yeah, we can do that.
All right.
That's it.
I
Thank
know
you.
the answer to that.
Oh, you do?
You already know?
Last year, we took in 12 new members.
12 over 18?
Over 18, from January 1st, 18 to December 31st of 18.
That's pretty good. And do you know under 18, juniors? Oh, no.
That I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know if there was many juniors.
Which works out to about 10% of our membership.
that's good. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Trustees, Alpert's not in construction, he's a Chippendale dancer.
Yeah.
In case anyone wanted to
No,
know.
I just want to thank, I do want to thank you guys for all the work you do, because you are the hardest, yeah, I mean, you're working for free, you know what I'm saying? And I really appreciate that, I want to say that. Any of my questions are not about you guys' work, it's just I want to make sure that the village spends its money wisely.
No, that's fine, I don't blame
Make sure
you.
it's clear.
Thank you.
I think you guys do great work.
Thank you. Ms. Mills, Culture and Recreation?
Good evening, everybody. So a few things that we have coming up in the month of May. We have Walking Wednesdays that start tomorrow, Wednesday, May 1st. The walks will start at 6 p.m. They'll start here at Village Hall, walk around the loop, and come back to Village Hall. So the dates are May 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd. And Nancy Christopher from the village will walk. She is expecting another grandchild, so if she's out and someone else from Recreation will take a walk with you. So if anyone's interested, come walking with the village. Artie time will be this Thursday, May 2nd, and May 16th at 12 o'clock. Nutrition workshop will be here on May 7th at 10:30. Clifford Theater, we have an audition workshop coming up on May 8th. It will be in the auditorium between 5 and 7 p.m. Connor Community Day, this is something that we do every year. The fire department, police, the mayor, DPW, all village offices go to Connor School. We see the fourth grade class up there, and we show them off the vehicles. They get to meet us. It's a great opportunity for kids at Connor. So that's on Friday, May 10th. Over at the community center on May 10th as well is the lead. That will be from 7 to 10 p.m. Clifford Theater will be doing auditions starting very shortly, May 20th and May 21st, between 5 and 7 p.m. Cardio classes with Debbie are May 8th and 22nd. We will be hosting an Eagle Scout ceremony over at the community center on May 23rd with Daniel Munitz. I believe we reached out.
What day then? Do we know?
The 23rd is a Thursday.
Okay.
The Memorial Day Parade is coming up. Will be on May 27th, which is Memorial Day, at 11 a.m. So that is it for events. The last thing I had on my item was discussion about lifeguards. So I have the list of lifeguards that I'd like to propose hiring for 2019. And I'll give it to the mayor and we can send it to everybody. We can discuss at Monday's meeting.
Okay. Did we have any feedback on the community cleanup?
We had great feedback. We had a lot of great volunteers. DPW worked with the fire department, did one of the sites. We had the largest turnout in the county of Rockland. It was a great turn. For those of you that were here, it was a really great event. So we thank everybody that helped out. We had a lot down there. It was really good. So the feedback has been tremendous.
1,200 pounds of garbage picked up and dumped at the dump for free.
1,200 pounds.
Yes.
1,200 pounds of garbage.
So when Joe
Didn't weigh
just,
my bags, Joe.
he did, Monday, that Monday. So what Joe just said was free because it was for Keep Rockland Beautiful. They did not charge the village for us to bring that garbage to the dump.
Right.
Because it's a Keep Rockland Beautiful event. 2 trucks too, right?
Yes, 2 full mason dumps.
Wow. Very
We had to
good.
take a couple tires out because we can't bring them to the garbage. We got to recycle them properly. So we lost maybe a couple hundred pounds there.
But it was a tremendous event. I appreciate everybody helping out. A great day.
Great, all right, thank you. Mr. Sawicki, Department of Public Works.
Okay, a couple of items I could provide an update. The lights on Lafayette and
Yeah.
Monty. So there was a short and caused a small electrical fire. As a result of that, we needed to shut that circuit down. So that took out the monument, took out some lights on Lafayette. We had a contractor out today. He was able to isolate the monument from the Lafayette. So Lafayette, Joe is on, right?
Yes.
Okay. So he's going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to be rewiring those lights.
Which lights is he rewiring?
The 3 at the monument.
Okay. Are we converting them to LED?
Yes.
Yes,
that's
right,
good.
okay.
Is the short just due to like nature, like? it was-
Nah, well, it wasn't, I'm not sure when it was done, but what they ended up using was interior Romex.
Which is not suitable.
Was not the proper wiring, and I'm surprised it actually held up as long as it did. So we're gonna be doing it
I'm glad that it
properly.
was found. That's great.
Yeah.
So that affected all the other lights that I listed?
Well,
out?
yeah, because they're on the same circuit.
Some are all clear down, the other.
And there were some other ones, we had some light, we had.
There's a car accident with the one Chestnut and Lafayette that was
Right.
taken out, that
Right.
caused that leg to blow out also.
Right,
And
and
then
we're gonna
the-
try to get that, with a little luck, we're gonna try to get that, some decent weather, we're gonna try to get that
Right.
corrected this week.
What about converting all of those lamps on Lafayette?
$19,694.
Now that you add.
Got your answer.
I have 3 different quotes.
And do we have that funding available
There.
in this year's budget?
We do have it in 005 of the street lighting from 2016.
Still there.
Let's look into that, let's make sure and see what we can do, we'll
Yeah,
follow up on that
as Joe
tomorrow.
said, it was 25,000.
We want to confirm it though through the treasurer's office.
Thanks for that follow.
Yeah. And then West Point is giving us a follow-up on the hard work that Joe did on LED lighting with West Point and the cadet study.
We did.
We did. Joe, you were a great help.
The
West
next-
Point, just so everybody knows, West Point, we partner with West Point, they analyze certain situations, they're analyzing the LED lighting in the village of Suffern, looking for cost-saving measures and what's best for the village. So we'll be having a report given to us tomorrow, actually, I'm going up there tomorrow to speak with them. Yeah, and along with security, critical infrastructure security, monitoring of the wastewater treatment plant and the water plant. So we'll have more reports tomorrow.
I have a question actually about LED lighting. I'm generally in favor. I do have a question though. If we change out to LED lighting, is the money that we spend on electricity for these utilities in the street, is it metered or is it like bulk rate essentially? Like do we pay a metered price based on how much energy we actually use, or is it a
I
bulk?
can answer that if you're talking the downtown area. We have 4 different meters in the downtown. We have 4 different legs. Yes, they are metered.
Metered, that's what I
On the
want to hear,
average,
because I know sometimes
The
it's
2
bulk.
longest legs are about $239 a month.
Mhm.
So once we drop this down to LED, we're probably looking about $69 to $89 a month.
That's fantastic.
The savings is gonna be astronomical.
That's fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that it's metered. I wasn't sure, so I'm.
Did a lot of work on this.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Okay,
The next item is the sanitary, Phase 2 sanitary sewer abatement. Work on Hallett Place is gonna commence on Monday the 6th. And will continue on or about the 17th, depending on weather. If weather is good, he might be able to finish it in a
they
shorter amount of
opening
time.
up the whole road,
Well, on the one side, on the village side, they're gonna, where the existing sanitary sewer is now, it's on,
Right.
you know where
the
the,
rail side.
yeah, the rail side, it's on the opposite side of that Hallett Place roadway.
Which side? I'm sorry.
The opposite side of the railroad, not on the railroad side, but the opposite.
That wasn't the county line? Was the
There-
county line
There's a
there also?
county line that runs nearby there.
Right.
Yeah, that's not, we're not.
We're not going near the county line.
Well, in one area will be close,
Right.
but, you know, we're gonna interfere with their line.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's gonna, and we sent out a notice, we have met with Rockland, Transportation of Rockland County and the coach and all the people we met this week.
Mhm.
As was the end of last week, it was Friday. So they are all on board, they know what's gonna be done, they're gonna be taking, making some modifications. Everybody be picked up, rather than on Howard, they're gonna be picked up on Chestnut.
okay.
And then I guess the only other item is, I know New York Rising was trying to set up a meeting, so I don't know if we can, she's
Oh, yeah,
actually
we have
called,
to do
she's
that.
actually called me
Yeah.
a couple
All
of
right.
times, so.
We'll set that up then, please.
The next item is the MS4 annual report. I'll pass that now.
Thank you.
Okay, so this report is, this is a report that's generated on an annual basis. It runs from March 8th through the following March, it ends in March 9th.
Yeah.
So it's not the typical calendar year. And it's, we end up utilizing, and that's on the next item, is the Cornell Cooperative. We utilize Cornell to provide education and outreach and to comply with the MS4 requirements. So there's a lot of components to the MS4. There's a total of 6 minimum measures that compile this report. So, and it's a matter of, it involves a number of things: street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, outfall
Monitoring,
reconnaissance,
yeah.
and a number of things. And it's all stormwater related. And this
We're in
is due
compliance.
to, this is due to be sent to the DEC by June 1st.
And we're in compliance, full compliance.
This is the agreement with Cornell that we've since 2003, when the MS4 program started, utilizing Cornell as our partner in developing, there's 3 minimum control measures that Cornell assists us with. You can see it on the top here. It's the public education outreach, public participation in stormwater management, and good housekeeping for municipal operations. So Cornell provides training and a number of public outreach items that are required as part of this MS4.
Okay, we're gonna have the public hearing on Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
That's for the MS4, the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
All right, what do we got? So I have the application for payment to Bella Vista Construction Corp. That is for the ADA ramps, the work that was done last fall. This is the balance and final payment for Bella Vista, $3,071. And there's another application for payment for Valentine Electric. That'd be in the amount of, that's for the South Street emergency generator replacement. That'd be in the amount of $14,511.25.
That's the second payment?
That is the third payment
Third
for
payment?
Valentine.
How much was that?
$14,511.25. And then, so the last item here, we have a, Delaware Engineering had submitted a proposal. It's in regards to renegotiating the consent order at the wastewater treatment plant. So, though it's not stated in here, we'll be submitting a revised one, it'll be not to exceed $15,000. Any questions?
No, I think I'm good. Anybody have any questions?
The schedule's pretty expensive.
This is the same firm that we originally used.
Yeah, it's pretty typical, that's an average of what engineers cost today. It's just what, they have to step down for the lawyers, right?
Technical typist for $80 to $90 an hour. That's pretty good for a typist.
The technical type.
Technical typist, but.
Typist only makes $50 an hour. Okay, trustees. Mr. Alpert? Anything? Okay, thank you. Mr. Girard?
I just have a final statement on the whole budget issue. I'll be the first to say that Mr. Genito is the best thing to happen to this village in quite some time.
I'll second that, by the way.
And so do I.
I really appreciate the work you do, Mike. You're amazing.
The previous mayor brought him on, and the best decision I think the current mayor has made is to keep him on and recognize his value, and I think we all do. So, thank you, Mike. The issue on the 2%. I mean, I understand what Mike has explained about 2 months' worth of cushion and fund balance, and I'm glad that we're striving to get there. But, you know, there were still some things in this budget that I think we could have cut without cutting services, and that, in particular, Steve mentioned 200,000 contingency in the general fund. We had 200,000 contingency in the sewer fund. We have 100,000 contingency in the water fund. The sewer fund owes the general fund over $2 million, and we're starting to pay that back with another $200,000. There's $700,000 there in contingency that I feel is too much to put on the residents in 1 year, especially when it's the same year where we can no longer deduct these taxes. So I felt we could have had a little bit more flexibility in how much contingency we were gonna put on the residents. So I think we could have got this number down more because of that. I recognize the need for contingencies, but not so much when we have a fairly strong fund balance. So I just wanted to just stay, I completely, I know where Mike is coming from, and he's, like I said, he's really, you know, changed the climate and the culture of this village when it comes to financial responsibility, and I commend him for that. But I just felt like this particular year, we've all gotten a punch in the gut from the federal tax law and the fact that we can't deduct these property taxes anymore. And I just think that was too much for everybody. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Hertzman, were you going to say something?
Well, I wasn't gonna have any further comment
Oh,
on the budget.
okay.
I did want to just bring up, you know, the little tour that we did today.
Mhm.
And our hope to do some improvements, using some small remaining balances from the tree fund, which would allow us to do some planting and some really kind of flood maintenance without it being a huge project. Then we could just kind of channel a little riverbed that's already there due to erosion and put in some plantings along Lake Antrim that would benefit a little bit from flood control, benefit the residents aesthetically. It is a widely used area, and we thought that we could take a couple of $1,000 that are really left over in that fund and maybe do something that could have some visual impact and hopefully some puddling and ponding alleviating.
I think it's a great idea. We looked at it, we're gonna have to analyze it a little bit more closely. You know, see if we can accomplish that, see if we can get some rocks,
DPW.
what are they called? What are they called?
Dallas.
Ballast? Ballast? See if we can take care of that drainage issue. I just wanna go back to the budget and the fund balance also. I mean, it's been stressed time over time, meeting after meeting, in regards to having a contingency fund, having the proper fund balance. You need the contingency fund in each department, in the water department and wastewater and the general fund for any unforeseen emergencies, for any unforeseen contractual obligations that we have before us. These are the reasons why we need those funds available to us in this budget. We need that healthy fund balance. We're on the recovery course from years of mismanagement. This is what we're facing. This is what we're overcoming. We are working together to accomplish that goal. And that's what we need. It's very responsible. It's a responsible budget. The controller deemed it responsible and manageable for the village. These are your services. Someone did ask me last week at one of the meetings, what services do we have? I don't even know what we're paying for. Go through the list. Make yourself aware of what you really are paying for. It's, you know, it's sort of taken for granted that the garbage man, the DPW guys come around and pick up your garbage every day or twice a week.
Is that document on the website for them to look at?
Passed it out tonight, will be on the website.
Yeah. It's a menu. And you could just look at it and say, wow, this is what we get for our village, for living in this village of Suffern, and we get great service. I mean, I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but these are the things that we have here in the village of Suffern.
We also have an infrastructure that needed a lot of repair, a lot of maintenance, and we still have a consent order that we're working under.
And we're in the midst of negotiating a consent order with New York State DEC. We're trying to avoid a $10 million cost avoidance in the upgrades and modifications to the wastewater treatment plant, trying to get our plant to operate at an operational excellence, which we're achieving now. 6 or 8 unit operations, I've said this over the last 3 or 4 meetings, we're down or not operating properly. All of this takes money to rebuild. And we're trying to rebuild it at the lowest cost possible. So just bear with us, we are on the right track. And this is what we're doing, we are being responsible. Going to responsibilities, we are forming a new ethics board. We had an issue with forming of the ethics board due to a violation in the CSEA agreement. It had to be negotiated in to their contract. So right now we have 5-member board, Reverend Kay Dubison, Michael Zal, Fred Alazan, Gertrude Zimmerveld, and Gabby Weingard. So we'll be building on that ethics board, and we'll keep you updated on that. But that's it. Anybody else?
Mayor, just before you adjourn the meeting, I wanted to remind you
Yes.
and the board trustees that my office had offered to do a review and training session with yourself and the board trustees on applicable laws and procedures. So whenever you're ready to do that, we'd be happy to come in and meet with you.
So we need a day for that.
Correct.
Right, so we're gonna have to try to develop a day, you know, think about it, and by Monday, maybe we can all get together and have a day, a couple of dates, and see what works for us.
Does it
And
mean
then-
literally a day, or could it be
Say
an
during the
evening?
day.
I would say during the day, because it's gonna be lengthy,
Okay.
unless you wanna make it late afternoon into the evening.
Whatever's convenient to you
Right.
folks. We'll try to work around your schedule.
Okay.
All right, so Monday, just think of, think of something, some dates.
How many hours would you suggest this?
I would probably say 2 to 3 hours.
That's on the arm, right?
What's that?
That's on the arm, right? No charge. It means no charge.
Nothing's for free.
No charge. He looks like a nice guy. I think he's gonna do this one.
Motion to adjourn.
He's the
Motion by trustee Alpert, second. Trustee Hagen, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes.